The Analogue Pocket, a new handheld FPGA console for Game Boy and a slew of other portable game systems from the 80s and 90s. Folks, we've been looking forward to checking this out for a very long time, and we got ultra lucky when Analogue reached out to us wondering if we'd like to have an early look at the system. And of course, we said yes. Ever since it arrived, we've been playing this puppy non-stop, putting it through its paces. So, the question remains, is the Analogue Pocket overhyped, or is it the greatest handheld game console ever made? Buckle up, we've got lots to say about the new FPGA system on the block. Now, before we begin, I think many people out there may want to compare the Pocket to the original handheld hardware it's trying to replicate. But the original hardware has aged significantly, and comparing their performance to something that's brand new is simply not fair. That old hardware doesn't run, look, or sound as well as it did when it was fresh out of the box. My Game Boy screen, for example, it's seen some better days. And my Game Gear speaker vibrates and is distorted at higher volume levels. Everyone's comparisons will be a little bit different on this, so keep that in mind as we move forward. One reason we were so excited to get our hands on this new handheld is because of Analogue's overall hardware pedigree. Yes, it may be the company's first handheld endeavor, but it's far from their first FPGA-based console outing. The Analogue NT Mini, for example, was an FPGA system that faithfully played NES carts. The company followed that product with the Super NT, which focused on Super Nintendo titles, and followed that with the Mega SG, which focused on the Sega Genesis library. The last two on the list we actually looked at here on Rerez, and since we've reviewed them, there's been a bunch of new features added with firmware updates, and people have hacked them and stuff, so they've gotten to be a lot better over time. If you've seen our older videos, you'd know we really liked analog systems. They're our favorite way to play retro games, hands down. We prefer them over original hardware in many cases when using modern TVs. They just work, and they work incredibly well. As we've already mentioned, the Analogue Pocket is an FPGA-based system, which, without getting into crazy technical details, does not use emulation software to run its games. It runs titles more closely to how original hardware would run them, but now with a ton of extra features baked in. The Analogue Pocket is designed out of the box to play Game Boy, Game Boy Color, and Game Boy Advance carts. With additional adapters, the Pocket will also play Game Gear, Neo Geo Pocket, Neo Geo Pocket Color, and Atari Lynx games. You know, for the millions of Lynx fans out there. The only adapter included with our review unit was for Sega Game Gear titles, which, fitting with the Sega brand, looks like a tower of power on the back of the system when you insert games. We've looked at a lot of different Game Boy imitators over the years, many having mixed degrees of quality. To put it simply, nothing we've ever looked at previously compares to what Analogue has produced here. The Analogue Pocket screen alone is so good, it'll make you feel like you've never seen these games running properly before. It's vibrant, bright, and displays games in colorful, super crisp detail. In person, the 3.5-inch screen actually feels much larger than expected. At 1600 by 1440 resolution, you get a beautiful HD image for those incredibly low-resolution games. That resolution matters a lot since it provides no visual artifacts like shimmering or blurriness and produces no noticeable ghosting. So pretty much, this is the best screen we've ever seen running any of these games before. The build quality is top-notch. The Pocket feels solid in your hands, and the buttons and D-pad are ultra-responsive. Every button and port feels like they're located in instinctively second-nature sweet spots that make perfect sense. And its solid minimalist design carries over to its ultra-simple OS interface. The device is super easy to configure on the fly, even when you're in the thick of a heated gaming session. You can change some visual settings and adjust features, things we've come to expect from Analogue products in the past. Like, hey, do you want your game to look less like an ultra-clean black and white screen and more like that original Game Boy display complete with olive green tint and retro pixel look? Do you want to replicate the color of the Game Boy Light, a system only ever released in Japan? Well, you've got options to do that here. And there's plenty of others you'll find in the options. If you've played Game Boy carts on their original devices, Guess what? You already know exactly how the Analogue Pocket plays. The games feel and sound just as good as you remember, if not better, thanks to the newer screen and hardware. I struggled to find any negative differences at all, but you've got new abilities not on the original devices, like a beta quick save feature we had access to that allowed us to quickly capture a save state of our game, making games previously without save functions savable. Analogue also supplied us with one of their brand new link cables that has a switch allowing it to go between Game Boy Advance and Game Boy Color. We tested it with an original Game Boy Advance and played some Mario Kart with multiplayer between the two. The Game Boy Advance on the other end of the line had no idea it was talking to a non-Nintendo system. It's incredible. Analogue noted that the Pocket runs so similar to original GBA hardware that it can even be connected to the GameCube's GBA link cable. However, to do this, you'll need to cut off the little lock mechanisms that are in place here for your Game Boy Advance. Otherwise, it won't fit on the Pocket. So just be aware that you might need to actually mutilate your old cable in order for it to work with the Analogue Pocket. Portability is the name of the game here, but it's only part of what this thing is capable of. Sold separately is the dock, which outputs the Pocket directly to your TV and up to 1080p at 60Hz. It doesn't come with its own gamepad, but a bunch of 8-bit Do wireless gamepads do work with it, as well as PlayStation 4 and Switch Pro controllers. The dock is very minimalist in design. There isn't a lot going on here. You have two USB ports for wired gameplay, HDMI out, USB-C for power, and a pairing button for controllers. It charges your Pocket console while it's docked and operates kinda like the Nintendo Switch dock, instantly switching between the TV and portable mode without a second thought. I've seen a few devices run some of these carts on a TV before, but in my opinion, nothing has ever looked this good. Even some of the titles we expected the console to struggle with, the Pocket played without a hitch. We tested Krix's EverDrive Game Boy X7 and EverDrive Game Boy Advance X5 multi-carts, and they ran just as they would on the original hardware that they were designed for. Pico Interactive had sent us a copy of Tyrannosaurus Tex for Game Boy Color. Yes, that's a first-person shooter for Game Boy Color, and guess what? The Pocket runs it, no problem. We also tested out some of the more interesting official carts, like Drill Dozer with the vibration motor inside, as well as WarioWare Twisted, which has a gyro sensor inside. They both run perfectly. No, the form factor is not entirely great for WarioWare's tilty gameplay, but hey, it does work. If you're mostly playing this docked, then charging won't be a concern for you, but if you're looking to take your Analogue Pocket on the go, let's talk about charging. The Pocket comes with a USB-C cable for fast charging, but no charge adapter. You can purchase one from Analogue, but for me, I used my iPhone fast charging brick, and that seemed to do the job. It also has a 3.5mm jack for headphones if you want to keep your gaming to yourself. Analogue also sells a hard plastic carry case to protect your console from dings and scratches. It's definitely sturdy, but honestly, it kind of feels like it holds the console's quick and simple portability factor back. It's a bit clunky and feels like it's more useful as a way of displaying the hardware overall. The Analogue Pocket isn't just a video game console. They've added other features in here you might be interested in. For the musically inclined, you can use the Pocket as a digital audio workstation with Nanoloop, and you can also create and play games with GB Studio, a quick and easy Game Boy game creator. I'm just using this though to play games, and I imagine the majority out there will probably be doing the same thing. Analogue will also be offering other features like playlists and full save state support, and that will be included in upcoming firmware upgrades. Our console is running an early firmware. This version doesn't include these features, so we weren't really able to test them out. So we've just heaped endless praise on this thing, but there are a few bits and pieces we're not the biggest fans of. The cartridge slot being so exposed and open might be bad for some folks. If you accidentally bump the cart while playing, the game will screw up. It happened once or twice during our review. With an original Game Boy, the cartridge was nestled into the slot and also had an additional lock that prevented the cart from being removed while the system was powered on. By comparison, this feels way more exposed. You can really toss the console around and the game will remain in place, but not every cart is the same, and your mileage may vary. Remember, many of these games were produced a long time ago and may be showing their age, and if a cart has aged to the point that it no longer works, well, don't expect the Analogue Pocket to magically resuscitate it. Another unfortunate con is the Analogue Pocket's pricing. This thing is not cheap. The only reason we're even bringing this up is because while we think this is a great unit overall, some gamers might not know or care about the difference between something like this or a software-based emulation device. But for those that know and can tell the difference, like myself, the price is likely worth it. So what are our grand final thoughts on the Analogue Pocket? This is the best gaming handheld not produced by a first-party brand like Nintendo, Sega, or anyone else. This is the best Game Boy, period. The best Game Boy Color, period. The best Game Boy Advance, period. The best Game Gear, period. And we're sure whenever Analogue releases more adapters for it, it will likely be the best way to play those systems as well. Even if we had a time machine and went back and bought many of these older systems when they were new, they simply wouldn't compare to what this is. Looks like plenty of our old handhelds may be going into long storage now, because nothing comes close to offering what Analogue has done with this clever machine. We're looking at a new gold standard for playing retro games on the go, and I don't think anyone is ever going to match what they've done today.